Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Groundwork Ohio's Thursday morning meeting. We are so excited to have our friends from the Mid-Ohio Food Collective here this morning, and I'm going to kick it over to them in just a moment. I'm sure everyone on the call has been anxiously following the news and sees that we are still at an impasse in Congress and the government continues to be on standstill. So we are closely following that and continuing to do advocacy work around all of the programs that impact young children, and we will continue to do so. And I know Tim and Hallie are going to talk a little bit more about that today. I'm also going to drop in the chat for folks who want to continue sharpening their advocacy muscles, strengthening their advocacy muscles, sharpening their advocacy pencils. I'm using the wrong verbs there. Our Momentum Institute is coming up on October 23rd. Tickets are selling out. So please get yours today if you haven't already. There's a great agenda at that link in the chat. We're going to have a panel around advocacy, around State House News Bureau. We're going to have a national pollster come in and talk about what Ohio voters are thinking around investments in programming for young children. So please come if you're interested in this content. And if you have any questions, feel free to email our team anytime. And then at the State House, we have seen the legislature reconvene. They're primarily dealing with property tax issues. I'm not going to pretend to be a property tax expert, but it appears that they're putting together a number of kind of temporary reforms and maybe not the big picture sweeping things that we're seeing projected as potential ballot initiatives to change our property tax in full. So we haven't we haven't been engaging this week, but we are monitoring to see how revenue streams look because any tax revenue that the state removes is obviously revenue that could be used for services that might impact families. So we're always keeping an eye on that. So that's that for our quick and dirty legislative update. I am going to introduce my friends Tim White and Hallie Carrino-Lee. Tim is the Director of Government Relations and Advocacy for the Mid-Ohio Food Collective. Hallie Carrino-Lee is their Government Relations and Advocacy Manager. Mid-Ohio Food Collective serves a 20-county radius here in Central Ohio and beyond, and we are really thrilled and grateful for them to be here this morning. Tim has been there since 2018. He utilizes his many years of public affairs experience to assist Ohio's largest food relief agency in the state and navigate traditional issues such as federal and state anti-hunger programs while helping shape new pathways to tie together nutritional food assistance with other social determinants of health-based outcomes to help neighbors successfully find their path to self-sustainment. Hallie has first started off as a AmeriCorps Vista, and she has been at the Food Collective, Mid-Ohio Food Collective since when? How many years has it been, Hallie? Almost 5? Okay. And she and I've really had the pleasure of getting to work with her. She's also on the board of a nonprofit called Ohio Men in Government, doing a lot of really cool bipartisan work with local and state policymakers. Hallie has extensive experience in advocating for policies and legislation that address the root causes of hunger and poverty, and is deeply passionate about creating sustainable and dignified solutions rooted in community development and engagement. We are so thrilled to have them both here today, and I don't want to take up any more of your time because I want you to hear from the experts. So I'll pass it over to Hallie and Tim. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, guys. Good morning, everybody. Thank you again so much, Brittany and the Groundwork team, for providing us an opportunity to speak with you all today. Of course, we're talking a little bit about the shutdown and the impacts here that we would see at the Mid-Ohio Food Collective, but we hope to kind of provide a little bit of context of what impacts on shutdowns are for food banks, especially us here locally in Central Ohio. So for those of you who are not familiar with us at the Mid-Ohio Food Collective, we are the largest food bank here in the state of Ohio. We are one of 12 that's part of our Feeding America network here. Of course, our mission is to end hunger one nourishing meal at a time, while also co-creating communities where everyone thrives. Through our nearly 600 agency partners, so that includes traditional church pantries, soup kitchens, community action groups, daycare centers, schools, you name it. We are able to push out food into our communities. 2024, just to give a little bit of context, was our busiest year in our 45-year history. And we put the food on the table of more than 500,000 Ohioans over our 20 county service area. And so most of those households, roughly about 75%, did include at least one child or senior in that household. So many of who we're serving are working families families with children, families with seniors, because hunger can impact us at any time. And so just to give a bit of context, so obviously with us having the name Mid-Ohio Food Collective, you're like, well, you guys are a food bank. Why are you called the Food Collective? So, Brittany kind of mentioned in our bios talking about this kind of ability to address root causes of hunger and poverty in our work. So we rebranded back in 2020 to the food bank, or from the food bank to the food collective, to really meet those needs and address those needs. And so now through 5 assets, which are listed here: the food bank, our farm, our pharmacy program, which is our food is health initiative, our kitchen, which is our prepared meals, and then our market, which is our new idea of pantry services, is our opportunities to help do a more rounded opportunity for ending hunger in our communities. Our food bank is still our largest asset, so food out and food in into our communities. But through all these 5 assets together is how we talk about hunger as a whole and how it impacts families. So with that, so just a little bit of a timeline of the shutdown as we see it. So if you haven't fully been glued to the news, which probably good for your mental health, this is kind of where we're seeing as the timeline of the shutdown impacts. So as of October 1st is when we saw the initial shutdown happening. Pay for many federal contractors, especially, were seen immediately disrupted. By October 15th, which is where we haven't hit just yet, but with how dynamic of the shutdown is, and with the failed vote yesterday, we can see this happening. Will be when the first missed paycheck for active duty military, reservists, and other individuals that are paid through DoD would face their first missed paycheck. You'll also see a partial paycheck for most civilian federal employees. Of course, there's also discourse of a lot of those individuals not being paid. And then that's where we also start to see potential disruptions to WIC in some other states, possibly earlier in others. By October 29th, we'll see entirely a first paycheck miss for all civilian federal employees. Post November 1st is really where we start to get nervous about how the shutdown extends into November. That's where we may potentially start to see delays in federal food commodity orders, SNAP WIC benefit enrollment, and other major programs. So kind of just contextualizing this impact. So for us as the food collective and for food banks, a government shutdown means that we're seeing an entirely new population of people experiencing food insecurity that may have never experienced it the first time. So oftentimes it's our duty to be able to create educational opportunities for people of how they can access resources and know that our resources are available for individuals. So we are different in terms of SNAP and WIC, where there's no application process needed for accessing food banks. Families are required to hit at least 200% of the federal poverty line. And so it gives us a gap of being able to serve families who may not qualify for SNAP or may not qualify for WIC. There is also no need to bring a source of identification. That's brand new policy that got put through last year, where you don't need to necessarily bring an ID to access services. And we don't collect any specific data in regards to that. We do it for just tracking our service trends, but in terms of holding data, we don't track that. People who are federal contractors, of course, are the most vulnerable. So that's where we see opportunities to connect with like TSA agents, for instance, who are technically not federal employees. And so this time, as I just mentioned, is a really great opportunity for us to connect with local leaders of federal agencies, federal employer labor unions, and other military-facing nonprofits, especially to talk about what those impacts are. A lot of federal workers may be able to apply for SNAP, but also can apply for unemployment compensation as well through JFS. And so we have a whole specific team here at the Mid-Ohio Food Collective that their sole mission and their sole goal is to connect our neighbors with the benefits process. So helping them through applications, helping them to get the right paperwork together, helping them get prepared for their interview process, for instance. And so we want to make sure that families are connected to those resources. So overall, it's a really great opportunity in sad circumstances to be able to uplift what the issue of hunger is, how it can truly impact any family at any time. We don't know when we might experience job loss, or we might experience a parent falling ill and someone having to step away from work in that regards, life happens is what we say. And so we want to make sure that families know that our resources are available for them. And so during this time, opportunities that food banks have to connect with individuals that might be impacted by the shutdown is oftentimes doing pop-up pantries at places like airports, prisons, and other federal facilities.
What? Hey, Hallie.
Yeah.
What we will probably do this time, in the last shutdown that went 35 days, in particular the airport, we did pop-up pantries because there were so many of the workers who were impacted. Rather than recreate that, we've already reached out to the airports, the governing authorities, to work with them and try to direct people to existing pantries, to existing resources. Folks are already doing it. So the one thing I think I would emphasize is if anyone knows folks who need to access, you can contact online, but find the listing of local food pantries, kitchens, etc. They've been through this before. They know how to react to it, and we're trying to utilize that existing network more this
Mhm.
year.
Yeah, and we will have some resources at the end of the slides that I know Brittany and her team will be able to share out with anyone that are looking for resources or have questions about how to get connected to resources. Before I kick it over to Tim, the one thing I'll add is where we kind of see the differences of how these impacts will be is that we kind of really don't know where the pools of funds could be pulled for WIC once that kind of November 1st timeline hits. There has been discussion from the DeWine administration about where we could pull potential reserves from in the event that the question of where WIC funding could come from comes about. There has been in the news recently that the Trump administration has considered utilizing tariff funds for filling the gap of WIC being not funded through a continuing resolution or any kind of pathway that Congress might find. Unfortunately, if they utilize what's called Section 232 to use tariff funds for it, it still requires congressional approval for the president to be able to allocate those funds. So how much would be dispersed when is obviously a giant question mark. So the suggestion that utilizing tariff funds are kind of a nice suggestion, but probably not probable. And then I will kick it over to Tim.
Yep. Yeah, it is interesting that with the tariffs and some of the issues created with that, coupled with what's going on with the shutdown, has really made it a little bit more convoluted than usual. So we'll see where it goes from that. And with food banks, those of you who followed the state budget debate last year, you know that food banks were at the forefront of some of the discussion, and unfortunately, we lost some of our purchasing power through that. So with the shutdown, expectation of increased service visits, that's really going to put a strain on our network. We will be there, we will respond, but that is one of the things we're letting folks know, that service numbers already are up, our purchasing power is down, and we expect more people to come in. So it's going to be a bumpy ride. But the thing we always remind people, we will be there, do what we can to help people. So with that, not much more to say than buckle down and get ready. But to help you get to the resources, just brought up the connecting resources that come to us, Ohio Food Banks, the Food Bank Association, JFS. And one of the things, as the shutdown goes, individuals may be eligible for a variety of different assistance programs, from unemployment to SNAP to elsewhere. So we always encourage folks to explore or to find someone to help them explore what all of their options are. So definitely tell people, take advantage of what is out there, what kind of help they can get. So with that, you can also call on us. We're happy to help where we can. You have the contact information there for the three of us that represent the GR and Advocacy team. We'll do what we can to help answer any questions. Unfortunately, some of the questions. We're still trying to figure out what the answers are, waiting on the answers to come. And that is largely related to WIC and SNAP and the funding streams for those. But that's something we're going to keep very close to and hopefully get good news on. Hallie, I don't know if you have anything else you wanted to add on, or Brittany.
Yeah. So I'm just going to just quickly go back to our connecting resources slide real fast. This image that is here is just a screen grab of our system that we developed internally called Fresh Track.
Yep.
So this is a search tool that individuals can use to find resources in their area. So all that an individual has to do is go to freshtrack.com and type in their zip code, and that will pull up resources that are localized in their area based on the distance that they provide. So this will list meal sites, pantry services, their timeframes that they're open, the type of services that they provide additionally. Some of our pantry partners have modified their services a little bit based on just increased need and limited resources. So some of them are more zip code restrictive. Some of them might require reservations, quote unquote, to be able to access those services. But all of those can be detailed there. Those are predominantly localized to us here in our 20 county service area. I know that the Greater Cleveland Food Bank, for instance, has a geo-tracking option on their website that is similar to Fresh Track, where you can type in your zip code and find services in your area. For some of our more smaller food banks, they're posting their local distributions up on their websites weekly. And so if you're looking for something specific in your neighborhood, whether it's a meal site, whether it's a pantry, there is direct find food opportunities on all of our food bank websites, as well as the state associations as well.
One of the things we learned during the pandemic and shutdown, especially with new customers coming in who had never accessed our services, probably never dreamed of doing so, was we had folks driving in from other counties to come to the on-site pantry here at Food Collective. That's not necessary. This is a great tool for folks to use to find resources local to them. And so that's something we emphasize. You don't have to drive 20, 30 miles to find what you need. Go online, find your local pantry, find your local partners, utilize those, save that gas money.
That is so helpful, especially as we think about, a lot of our folks on the call today are either childcare providers or families that might have young kids. The thought of trying to bundle up your little kiddos and get them in the car and deal with, and if you have access to that transportation too, it can be such a barrier. So thanks for making that point. We really, really
Absolutely.
appreciate that.
Yeah, that is something that was a bit of an aha moment for the organization years ago, that our CEO was in the on-site pantry talking to a customer who said, I cannot afford to come here. And you think about why the food is free, et cetera. But at that time, we had hours that were pretty much during the business week, during business day. And that's why now you will see our markets and others that have expanded hours meet the customer where they are, so that folks don't have to take off time, don't have to worry about the child care. That's something very important that we've worked very hard to make the hours accessible for when people are available.
It's incredible. Well, I see one question in the chat from Jennifer Foster. Have you thought of working with CHMC Safe Network All Children Thrive? I'm not familiar with that specific program. I don't know.
Yeah, as I'm not either.
I'm not.
Jen, if you wanted to pop off mute or put in the chat if you're I think she might be caregiving at the moment, so it might be difficult for her to pop off mute. I think she's a frequent flyer. But if that
Well, I'm
is
here.
Oh, good morning. How are you?
Excuse me. Good morning.
Thanks for calling
So,
in.
thanks. I'm in Cincinnati, Ohio. We have the Safe
Okay.
Network. It was a food sovereignty program that we started some years ago. And we also learned how to collect data, also learned how to able to ask for grants for, to replace the food insecurity. There's some data measurements and stuff that you probably could collaborate with them. Carly Riley is the contact person at Children's Hospital you could reach out to. And maybe with the information you guys have and some of the data they have, they could possibly be able to get, more funding or more resources or a connection of resources. Just say if anybody in Cincinnati with the resources we have, we don't mind sharing them, to other places because there are other places and they're pretty good. So I've been with them. I think I incorporated a program about 4 or 5 years ago. One of my main concerns was that people was going to the free store food bank, but they weren't feeling welcome. Okay, so how can we incorporate something like that in our neighborhood and be more welcoming? And 9 times out of 10, it will open up other resources. Well, we found out that yes, they loved it. Yes, it changed some of their food habits. Yes, they was asking us for utensils, cooking stuff, housing resources. Just the floodgates just opened because they trust us and they feel more welcoming and more opening to ask us questions to open up another door or to connect with resources.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And I think I see Tim's note in the chat about connecting their team since they're different county service area with the folks that you're mentioning in the Cincinnati area.
Yes, and our wonderful colleague Sarah Coons from our Ohio Association of Food Banks is on the call as well, listening in. So she can absolutely get connected with you, Jennifer, to share more about that programming and get connected with the folks down in Cincinnati, whether it's directly with the Free Store Food Bank and continue to build out programming relationships there. But also an opportunity to connect with the more local partners in the area as well. So they also have agency partners that work hand in hand with them in terms of doing direct community outreach. And so Sarah can definitely help to generate those conversations. Thank you, Jennifer.
Sarah responded that she would follow up on it. So it's wonderful to see the people listening in chats and be able to immediate response. Thank you, Sarah.
Top-notch service from MOFC. Thank you,
Always.
guys. Do we have any other? Oh, sorry.
Oh, no. And from the association, the partnership.
Absolutely. Yes. Sarah's with I should have qualified that. Sarah's with the
You're good.
association. Any other questions folks would like to enter in the chat, or you can feel free to hop off mute. We're very conversational here during our morning meetings. I'll ask while folks are thinking, Tim and Hallie, if you could ask everybody on the call today to do one thing with the information that they learned, what would be most helpful in your work to fight hunger here in the state? What would you like people to take away and do if they hopped off the phone and did one action item?
I'll let Tim go first. Yeah.
Yep. I'll jump in real quick. I think it is to help direct people to available resources. One of the things we have found through the years, I think it's right about 5.5 times a year is when our average customer comes to one of our pantries. That may have moved some, and that tells us folks are accessing our services when they absolutely need it. We would rather see them have that steady stream of healthy food, stay healthy, which, as you all know, impacts learning, work, all of that. So help people access the resources, get them to get to the resources so that they can get back on their feet, self-sufficiency, utilize what is out there. So whether it's through us, JFS or whomever, getting people on the track to be able to get the assistance they need and get back online.
Yeah. And I would say in the same vein, as you're talking to your neighbors about ways that they can ask for help when they need it, continuing to have the conversations about dispelling a lot of the myths behind accessing emergency food assistance and just benefits overall. We still have lots of conversations with community members and elected officials alike about what it means to experience food insecurity and what food insecurity looks like in our communities and across the country. Food insecurity exists literally in every single zip code in the United States. It happens in Delaware County, the richest county in terms of income in the state. It happens obviously in rural areas and Appalachia. And so dispelling what the face of food insecurity looks like by having those conversations of not being afraid to ask for help and knowing how those resources are available to you, but also talking about that food insecurity can happen to anyone. It can happen, we have stories of families who, were making 6 figures a year and lose their job and don't have savings. And then what do you do? Or, a parent who maybe they're escaping domestic violence and have nothing to their name and living out of their car. You don't know. There is nuance to everything, and we can never judge a book by its cover. And so we welcome all. We want to dispel the myths of food insecurity and what it means to access our help. So just having those conversations with people.
Thank you.
And
And
looks a hand up there, Jennifer. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Brittany.
I was just at a summit yesterday, a safe summit, and one of the things I tried to amplify is marrying the data together. If you look at PTSD, you look at housing, you look at food insecurity, you look at environment, they all go together. And I think we just been looking at a lot of times we don't want to marry the data together because if a person can't think right, if they're not eating right, they can't think right, including putting crime analysis in that as well. Because if a person don't have the right nourishment, if the person don't have the right housing, sustainability, and a village, because it takes a village to raise a child, and they don't have that support, then they're not going to be too successful and thriving. I think sometimes we look at it as food insecurity in one lens. And I think if we really do a deep dive, we can marry all these together, build a relationship, and come up with much more comprehensive data. Because regardless of whatever data you look at, you have to eat to be successful. Your mind have to move right, your body have to move right. And they have to be all married together to make a better understanding of life.
Absolutely, Jennifer. And I just put in the chat a little applause for you on that, because absolutely data-driven solutions across the way. And if you did not see, USDA recently announced they are stopping one of their reports, which was one of the primary data source points. So it's probably going to fall back onto organizations like us and throughout. But absolutely, it's got to be data-driven. It's got to address those daily determinants of life. It's a good point.
Yeah. Jennifer, you hit the nail on the head. We talk about this a lot when we're meeting with elected officials and community members, is that hunger is not just obviously food insecurity is not just a hunger issue. It's a housing issue. It's a childcare issue. It's an education issue. It's a workforce issue. To your point, people can't function well at work. Children can't learn in school. People cannot be good members of society if they're hungry. And so being able to cross check all of those data points and how they all correlate, bingo, looking at it holistically. Thank you, Deborah. And that's why we kind of shifted our model as the Food Collective, really being able to address how all of these external factors bring people to our doors and how we can meet people where they are, get them connected to other additional resources. And, hunger is the first step that gets them in the door to us. How can we connect them to all the other resources to get them back on the feet and let them live, work, and play better.
thank you so much, Hallie. Tim, this has been really eye-opening and really timely, as we have been just getting so many questions about how to direct folks to resources and what the timeline looks like. And we're just so grateful to have you as a community partner, and both you at the Mid-Ohio Food Collective and then the folks at the Ohio Association of Food Banks have been really, really great advocacy partners. And we look forward to supporting you. And the point around data is not lost on us, to the extent that we can be helpful as organizations like yours have to start looking at data collections to fill that gap. Whatever we can do to be helpful in collecting information from families, whether it's qualitative or quantitative, we're always here for you. So thank you, Deborah. And if you would like to talk more about that offline, I know Tim and Hallie have both put their info in our slides that we'll get out to you later today, if not by the weekend. And they are always happy to chat more. So thank you both for sharing your morning with us, and best of luck as we continue navigating this reality.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Have a great Thursday.
Thanks.
Have a blessed day, everyone.
You too. Thank you.